Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's conversation on retaining talent with internal coaching. Very, very excited to have all of you here. We have a very fast 30 minutes for this conversation, which means I'm going to move quickly as we go through the content. Now, of course, we do want to get your questions as we go and your comments as we're covering the content. So that means be ready with your keyboard and type fast because we're going to go at a super fast pace covering the information. And by the way, yes, as with all of these programs, what I will be doing is afterwards send you a link to the recording on the YouTube channel so you'll have a chance to see it again. All right, I'm pulling up the full agenda right off the bat. We will talk about the talent retention crisis. We're going to discuss turnover costs, opportunities for retaining talent, dig more deeply into the internal coaching, and then of course time for question and answer at the end. A good thing for all of you and something we do is, yes, we have something for you at the end of the program. All right, where are we going? First off, talent retention crises. 80% of people never use their greatest gifts at work. Okay, that's pretty scary. We have all these people on the job and we're limiting how much they're able to use their own skill set. What's going on with that? And imagine the difference when they themselves have a coach or the organization has a coaching culture, because it's going to change that number. Here's another one for you. 51% of employees are actively looking for a job. The very best people, half of them, over half, are looking for a job. Is that about the job or the company? No. Dig into this. 70% of all employees are looking for a different job, so we've got more than half of the employees, the best of the best, and even more when you look at everyone. And so it's incredible, first off, and scary. The talent is, number one, retiring, and then the ones that are still staying in the job market are actively looking for something else. So, just got a question. For example, this last statistic in italics on the bottom of the slide is the source for that. So hopefully that's helpful. All right, I'm going to keep going. Same thing here, Forbes magazine on this one. So even when you have business uncertainty, you have a high unemployment rate, you still have people who are leaving their job, and they're doing it every single month. 60-hour work week, and I'm guessing you all know this, this is the new norm. We're doing more with less. And 85% of illness is stress related. Depression is going to be the number 2 killer by 2020. Now, this is scary, and what's happening, we're getting caught in the traps of the work, and we're so involved in work, we're limited in terms of our time and our ability to look at other things. When you look at the ICF research on the reasons people hire a coach, one of the top reasons for individuals is work-life balance. And this is speaking to that. Another top reason individuals hire coaches for their careers. So there's all kinds of information out there. Simply go out and do a Google search and you're going to find a ton of this. So right now, absenteeism, higher insurance rates, and low productivity, the results of all of this is costing $576 billion a year. Wow. And then when you look at the research in terms of what coaching does, it's definitely an opportunity to save, to turn this around, to really make a difference. A recent study reported 31% don't like their boss, 31% cite a lack of empowerment, 35% have a problem with the internal politics, 43% say lack of recognition. These are all reasons people are unhappy in their current position. You've got the Center for American Progress saying high quit rates are often due to workplace policies. This is scary. Think about what's going on. Turnover costs include productivity losses during training, recruiting, and then of course the time when a position is vacant. And let's go further on this, everyone. When somebody leaves a job in their organization, what's happening to everyone around them? How do they perceive it? What are they thinking? Does it slow them down and affect their productivity as well? And we're not even measuring that. It's incredible. There's so much in terms of cost when we have a high turnover rate. You have slippage as far as work quality and completion. There's the ripple effect on everyone else. You're losing customers sometimes because that person was someone they really believed in, and that's who they were working with. And as an organization, you're losing credibility with customers and also internally. So pull this out and this, check out the research on this. High cost of turnover is consistent across jobs at different pay levels, except for the very highest paying jobs. So you can look at the numbers. It's amazing how much we're wasting on this. Now, losing a normal employee is high enough. Losing an executive is astronomical, up to 213% of their salary. And then an MIT Sloan professor said businesses could reduce their turnover by changing their internal policies. So what's going on inside of an organization? How do you do that? Well, the idea here is the coaching culture. Now, what exactly is a coaching culture? We do different conversations on that one, so let's have a quick look at it. In a coaching culture, it means that the leaders in the organization believe in empowering the people that do the job. That means giving them ownership to figure out what they're doing and how they're doing it. It means giving them the space to use their talents. It means supporting them even when there are mistakes, supporting them taking the risk so that they do have those mistakes, because ultimately they're going to learn and grow and develop and be better for it. And often those mistakes are one of the best impetuses for new concepts, new results, etc. A coaching culture means an organization that is positive, proactive, focused on solutions, empowering people, and moving forward. Now, think about this. When you talk to people in the workplace, do they really know how to be effective with everyone? You see, different people think, process, and function differently. And if you're talking about leaders who are working with them and functioning with them, are they aware of that? Are they aware of how to tap the talents of those individuals? So let's start pulling from what we know about coaching and applying it to create that coaching culture and ultimately use coaching to make a difference in terms of retaining talent. So, first concept, recognize and adjust respectfully to different personalities and to different learning styles. So it's moving that forward in terms of our awareness. Now, what does it take to do that? Well, when we think about coaching, one of the things we do in coach training is talk about how to be aware in the moment. Now, in a corporate setting, you've probably seen all kinds of resources available. You'll see organizations that have their key people do a Myers-Briggs assessment, which is assessing their personality style. They'll do DISC profiles on people. They'll use the Berkman Strength Finders. There's a lot of great tools and resources out there for identifying different personalities and really digging in to how they function. Now, the added benefit that coaching brings to this concept is that it's in the moment awareness, because ultimately those assessment tools, it's an expensive proposition, first off, and it takes a lot in terms of content to really dig in to who everybody is. So when you take that depth of information, there's tremendous value, especially with people working directly with that person themselves and people immediately around them. Add to that with what you get from a coach training program, because in a coach training program, what you're going to get is that, how do you recognize what's happening right this minute? And when something changes, how do you recognize that? And as you're recognizing these things, how are you adjusting to them? So we'll talk about in training, hey, is this person logic or emotion right now? And that can be different based on what the topic of conversation is. Are they more passive right now because they're thinking, processing, observing? Are they more aggressive, jumping in, thinking out loud, etc.? And then what do you do to adjust to them effectively and respectfully? Now, learning styles, many of you in talent development or training functions are familiar with the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learning styles. Well, how does that play into creating coaching culture? It means recognizing, okay, which style are they using right now and how do I adjust to that? So think about it this way. How many of you have gone and asked for directions? And then when you ask for directions, sometimes the way they're given works and sometimes it doesn't. You see, some of us want to have a picture of a map that we can see. Some of us want them to say step by step what the process is to get there. And some of us want them to tell us and have us draw it out and make sure we're getting it right. So we all have different approaches to that. Well, how does that play out in the workplace? It plays out in terms of how people are figuring out what they're doing and how they're doing it. It also plays into them moving forward as far as creating what they want it to be. So the idea of the coaching in an internal program is that it's an opportunity for you to identify what's going on and then adjust to it in the moment. Now, here's another great one. One of the big things we talk about in the workplace is being able to express ourselves effectively so that people understand what we're saying so that we're moving forward. What are the challenges with this? Sometimes it's a factor as far as confidence. Obviously, what we just talked about, recognizing personality and learning style, is going to play into that as well. Are we communicating in a way they're going to hear, process, and get it? Is what we're saying rambling? Are we running around in circles working to find a way to explain ourselves effectively? Is what we're saying positive and proactive, or is it turning people off and shutting them down? Is it the right level of information for them? You see, ultimately, to be effective in the workplace with that coaching culture, you do want a habit of clear, direct language. That comes out in several different ways. So one is communicating with people based on who they are, both personality and learning style. Another way this comes out is using assertiveness. And assertiveness is about being respectful for everyone. And it's about saying what you do want. And it's about being specific in terms of, hey, we're moving forward and this is what it means and how it is. It also includes the listening side of things, really hearing what other people are saying and what they're not saying. So yes, you've probably, most of you, had different programs or training on that, and ultimately coaching is taking it to that level where when you do that throughout the organization, it changes the culture and the dynamic. Now, the questions we ask, how effective are we with them? How do we know if it's the right question or a good question for asking. You see, we have this tendency to ask closed questions. And ironically, many of you looking at the screen are thinking, okay, well, that's a good question. And ultimately, it's actually a closed question. That question is going to get a yes or no answer from you. And whether or not you say it out loud or have the conversation with me, that's what's happening for you. So then the question becomes, okay, how do I know to ask the right questions? And it goes back to exactly what we do with your coach training. We talk about different types of questions and how to formulate effective questions. So for example, we say, ask short and simple questions that are open to the possibilities. So when we say short and simple, it's kind of funny. It's so easy for us to move into those longer questions, those convoluted questions, or another big mistake we often make is that we will ask a question and then we'll explain the question as if that person didn't understand the question that we were asking. Or we will ask a question and then we will turn around and ask a different question because we ourselves are still figuring out how to ask the question. Well, what does coach training do for you in that regard? It supports you in terms of formulating those powerful and effective questions in the moment while you're having the conversation. So knowing types of questions and knowing to ask questions that are open to possibilities. So open to possibilities is both open-ended and it's future focused. It's about where you're going. And it means sometimes, ideally, we really are unsure what the answer is because the more we're asking it that way, the more we are open to those different possibilities. Okay, next. When you think about talent, how do you engage people and motivate them for the best possible results? So for those of you that have done coach training, those of you that have had a coach or exposure to it, what are the key differences? Well, in terms of motivating others, what does that really take? There are two types of motivation. There's internal, where it comes from inside of ourselves. It's this drive or desire or will to have something to make it happen, to do or act. External motivation is coming from outside of ourselves. It means we're doing something for someone else or to avoid a consequence. Well, in organizations, very often that's what's going on. There's all this external motivation. Hey, if you don't do this, you're going to get fired. Or you're going to get yelled at, or whatever else it is. We're doing it for someone or something else. We're avoiding a consequence. Ultimately, if you really want to engage and motivate others, give them ownership of what it is, how it's done, and their outcomes, and explore that internal motivation. What does it mean to them? You know, we talk a lot, for example, about millennials, and we're finding this is so true with millennials. What do they want in the workplace? They want a level of autonomy. They want to own what they're doing and how they're doing it, and they want to do it for their own reasons. One big example, you've all heard the conversation probably around, hey, is it about the money? Oh, not necessarily. It isn't necessarily about the money. It's about what does it mean to them? Hey, do they feel like they're contributing positively? Are they giving back? Is what they're doing making a difference? That's an internal motivation because for them, it has significance. And so when we support that internal motivation, then they really do care about it. They own it. They're fully engaged. So it's about giving them the opportunity in terms of the freedom to figure it out and make it happen, and their own reason for making it happen. All of this makes a difference. And of course, in coaching, what is it all about? It's really about exploring this with each client you're working with. You're asking them, what do they want? What does it mean to them to achieve that? And then you're supporting them in figuring out how they're moving forward. So it all plays in. Building on that, tying it all together. When you think about retaining talent, the coaching approach where we're figuring out how they're thinking based on their personality and their learning style, and we're also focused on, are they positive? Are they moving forward? Are they internally motivated? And then how are they going to proactively act so that they do achieve what they want? And a coaching approach encompasses all of this if we pull it all out. So think about the process for doing this. What's happening? How are you maximizing the strengths of your team? So right now, the first question that begs is, are you aware of the strengths of your team? What are you doing inside the organization to really identify where people's strengths are and to ensure that they have the opportunity to really utilize those strengths to the best of their ability? As a coach, what do? When you are coaching somebody individually, a coaching approach involves exploring that because they're figuring out what resources they have available to achieve what they want. They're finding their own strengths, discovering those, and figuring out how they're going to apply them in terms of achieving whatever it is they want, whatever the goal is. And sometimes it's personal goals, sometimes it's work goals. And in coaching, think about a coaching culture. If we stay with the company and it's only about the job and the company and what happens on the job, then we're shutting the door in terms of that individual with whatever else they want on a personal level. How is that going to impact retaining talent? Well, ultimately, people do have lives outside of the workplace, and when they're supported to apply their strengths in the workplace, to really tap their internal motivation in terms of moving forward, that actually supports them on the personal side as well. They're more confident, they're more effective, they're communicating and interacting more positively in their own lives, and that in turn feeds the work again. It becomes a complete circle. It all interacts with each other. So what does that mean to all of us? In terms of retaining talents, creating a coaching culture is an opportunity because you support individuals to identify their own interests, their own strengths, to set their goals in terms of what they're moving toward, what it means to them personally, how they're proactively taking action, and to plan their process because they're empowered, given that freedom to figure it out and do it themselves. And because they plan their own process, they own it. It makes a powerful difference. And it's super exciting. Now, here's a great quote from you. And this is from Ellen Hall. It was put out in Forbes magazine. To every degree that a company can make its executives and employees an enterprise of one. Okay, what does that mean, everyone? Enterprise of one. That means they themselves, and he goes on to say, become their own boss. They don't have to leave the organization. It's a difference of whether they're micromanaged or empowered. And the bottom line is, if they're in the job and in the workplace, they have the ability to do the work. So it means empowering them to be their own boss inside of the organization. Let them know, hey, this is what's required, the end objective. Now you figure out how to make that happen. And in that way, corporate leadership is still going to achieve productivity And you're going to have people that are a lot happier and more fully engaged because you're giving them that latitude, that personal freedom in terms of how they accomplish the company goals. And check this out, their personal goals, back to it's all connected. They are a whole person. So whatever it is for that, they're a whole person. And it all ties together. Okay, so very quickly want to share a few resources with you. This is a lot of insight in terms of coaching inside the organization as a culture. As far as having it as a program, we've got lots of pieces to help support that. So first off, a great resource for coaching generally, whether you are a coach that is working inside the organization or seeking opportunities to work for organizations, International Coach Federation is a great resource for you. The Center for Coaching Solutions is a resource for companies that want coaching or coaching programs, and then the Center for Coaching Certification, which is training for coaches. So the International Coach Federation is at coachfederation.org. The Center for Coaching Certification.com is the website to look at for the coach training. And then the Center for Coaching Solutions is a resource for three different things. Number one, consulting. If you want to start an internal coaching program, there are services available to support your process for doing that. An additional great resource on this website is there's a free white paper available on starting and running an internal coaching program with all kinds of detail and insight and ideas on what to do, examples of different forms and processes, etc. So check that out. It is also a resource for you in terms of training your internal coaches, whether you want a full-blown program, a more tailored program, etc. Works with you on that. And then providing coaches, because coaching programs for organizations are going to involve both internal and what we call external coaches. Internal coaches are employees within the organization. Best practice is that they're coaching up through the mid-level management, and then external coaches are hired from outside the company, and those are going to work with your highest level of management. So Center for Coaching Solutions provides that as well. Now, on top of that, lots of great information available on our blog website. The books that are published every year are phenomenal. The authors, every chapter is unique. It's a standalone read. Every book is completely different group of authors, different content, etc. Great insight, great information. Check those out. And then, of course, we do these free webinars each month. We also are available to you if you want to have a quick telephone call or email. We are here as an outsourcing service for consulting, training, or coaching, as mentioned. And in support of you starting or running an internal coaching program, in support of your efforts for retaining talent with coaching, we do offer a free consultation. So it's 30 minutes talking about how do we do that, what is possible, what are different approaches, etc. And of course, we want to support you in terms of choosing the different resources that are available to you, planning your own process and implementing your strategy so that you do achieve the results that you want. Our website, we have Center for Coaching Solutions and Center for Coaching Certification, so both of those are going to be effective. Here is contact information. Feel free to reach out, ask questions, etc. Definitely want to be available for that. We have, of course, used our 30 minutes. We did talk about that. It was a fast 30 minutes. So where are we at now? For those of you that do have additional questions, please feel free to type them into the question panel. We're inviting those. I appreciate the comments we are getting. Yes, and agreed. Speaking to a couple of you, you're talking about being amazing, being staggering, and being unreal. in terms of the statistics as far as what's going on with talent in the workplace. And again, I'm going to say this doesn't even touch on what's happening as far as people that are retiring out, which is the next big fear as far as what's going on. So yeah, thank you for those comments. So glad that this was helpful. I appreciate your thanks. I am hoping we have covered what you wanted to get in terms of information and that we responded to your questions. I am going to go ahead and close this out now. We will get a link to the recording out to all of you, and do feel free to reach out with additional questions. So thank you, everybody.